September 14 was a dark and stormy night. All of it was a dark and stormy night. 24 hours of dark, stormy night. Dakota came screaming into this world, and he would continue screaming until Marvel Legends were put into his hand. Similarly, May 14th, 1996, Jordan came screaming into this world, wailing at the moon. Some say he still wails at the moon, and he'll continue to do so until Hasbro puts out a Franken Castle. This is our collector origin story. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Strong Collectors Podcast. I'm your host, Dakota, here with my co-host, Jordan. And today we are doing our collector origin stories. Like I said, we came screaming into this world. Sometimes, depending on the action figures that are revealed and announced, we still like to do some of that screaming. But
go back to screaming.
We are going to be kind of going from, the start of maybe when we started playing with action figures, maybe when it turned to collecting, and we haven't been 100% all the way through. We took a little bit of a break. Jordan and I even took a break. We were on a break. But we're back together now.
Together. In case there's any doubt about that.
Right. Somebody did comment on one of our recent episodes, wondering how long we'd been life partners. The answer is since fourth grade. So was it fourth grade? Yeah, fourth grade.
That's right.
But I don't know. I guess I'll kind of do my. I'll do my earliest, starting out with superheroes. Let's go with superheroes first, because kind of our main collection, whether it's action figures or comics or whatever. But it kind of starts all around superheroes. Earliest memories for me. I remember my uncle was super into comics, like he had been his whole life. He has tons of them still. But I remember he gave me his old trading cards. So he had them in the booklet. So I would go through and I just remember sitting with him and being like, who would win, this one or this one? And just go through every single card and be like, Cyclops or Wolverine, Magneto or Apocalypse. And that's kind of how I learned what their powers were. Cause I'd go through too, just what does this one do? What does he do? Is that one good or bad? Good guy, bad guy. Yeah. So that was just kind of how I started learning. My dad would also watch all of the cartoons with me. I remember watching the old Avengers cartoon is maybe one of the first ones I remember watching with him. I know I watched the Thundercats and especially Justice League Unlimited, the Batman. He would TiVo all those and we would watch those together. So that was fun. And then Rex, who lived kind of a block away from my grandparents' house. He was the one who got my uncle into comic books. So then I would go visit him. He was paralyzed and everything, but his room was all not action figures, but all comic book posters and stuff. And he actually, let me switch my backgrounds here, because one of the reasons I love why don't I even have it on here? Well, he had this one. So he had this poster up, and I would kind of similar with the action figure or with the trading cards. I would go through and be like, who's this character? And then I would kind of try to make it to, it was I would go home, study, come back and be try to go through and name every single one. And again, just kind of, asking which one does which, what powers are what. He also had the Avengers #1 cover that I really like from that, when they turn into issue 2 is when they all turn into medieval stuff.
Nice.
But that issue 1 is just all the Avengers that had ever been Avengers was on his poster. So another one that I would just kind of this one. But yeah, so what are some of your early superhero memories, Jordan?
Okay. I mean, it's definitely going to go back to, because I had 2 older brothers and some cousins that were also in the nerd world. I think superheroes, man, if I go real back, of course, watching the animated series, watching X-Men, watching Spider-Man, Batman cartoons. Those ones were pretty big for me, I think. it was kind of a mix of a lot of the things you're talking about, though. The ones I really remember were the Marvel trading cards, not the like 90s ones. They started coming out in like 2000, 2001 or so, maybe. I don't know if you've ever seen these. We could probably find some pictures of them.
Yeah.
But they were just cards, and they'd have a little bio on the back, and it was all like the same art, which I thought was cool. But they were these really sweet ones that were like rare, and they were secret identity cards. So they'd have like a sticker that was translucent. So you get like symbiote Spider-Man, and you'd like peel it back, and it was Peter Parker, or I don't know, stuff like that, or Captain America, Wolverine, whatever. So that was the first sense I remember of like, oh, dude, I gotta get these secret identity cards because they're sweet. The problem was once you peel them off too much, they lost their stickiness. But they had foil ones and all that kind of thing. But they'd have little factoids about the characters. So that is kind of how I would start learning about a lot of those guys. Of course, getting into, I'd say, as far as reading comics goes, like my brother would collect comics. He was a little spotty though, so he'd get like issues 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, and 10, which is a little frustrating. But so my learning was a bit fragmented for sure.
Do you remember the first comics you were reading?
Like the first comic I ever read in my whole life?
Oh, I mean, either that or like something like the first one you were like gifted, like, here, this is your comic, anything like that. While you think about that, I think my first, like this is my comic, I think it was probably the JLA, was that Grant Morrison? And that was kind of, I don't even know if I could barely read by then when I got that, but that's kind of the first one I remember. The next one I remember this, I would hope that there was some distance in between these two, but I also remember getting The Killing Joke, but I would hope that that was later in life. I can't remember exactly, but I think my parents just went to like a comic book store and they're like, hey, we're looking for a comic book. Our son likes Batman's. And they're like, oh yeah, here, Killing Joke is a really popular one. And it's like, maybe you shouldn't be giving that to your elementary school kid, but
what can you do? Yeah. I remember the first time I remember the Marvel Zombie comics were very like ones that kind of I thought were cool. The Marvel Zombies versus Army of Darkness. I remember my cousin and brother bought that for me, the first issue. So I still have that one. And that one was really cool. I ended up getting that one signed later on.
Cool.
But I think that kind of started my because I would get, as you remember in our Marvel Legends, I would get the issue. That I blame a poor lack of guidance, Dakota, but those of you listeners don't know this, to my shame. I would get like a comic in the Toy Biz when I would read it, and I didn't know you were supposed to keep them. So I think a lot of those just got thrown away. So I blame at least my brothers for not stopping that from happening. But I think when I started following, probably was around that Marvel Zombies one where I started I'm going to follow, and I finished that whole series and then started to, move on and collect books. I absorbed a lot of my brother's collection too, though, when he didn't really want them so much. I remember Civil War, the graphic novel. That was the first time I got that from a bookstore and read the whole thing and was like, oh, this is sweet. So I remember I had a choice that day. I could get a Captain America t-shirt that I really wanted or Civil War, the comic. And I went with the comic. And I think that was a real crossroads in my life. And I think it made me into the person I am today, for better or for worse.
Could have been the person that wore Captain America, or you could have been the person that knows him.
Exactly. I could have been one of those poser guys, but I chose I chose the harder path.
Went with knowledge.
Diverged, and that has made all the difference. So I remember that one, and I think from there was when I started being I'm aware of this Marvel universe. You know what I'm saying? Following the events and the characters and all that kind of stuff, what's going on. So I guess that's more like my comic story.
I would imagine your toy action figure journey probably started earlier. What was some of the early action figures you were playing with?
I mean, as far as superheroes go, I think my older brothers had a lot of Batman toys, Batman movie toys, like a Mr. Freeze. There were some those like 3 3/4 little Batmans. But I remember even then, I think at that age I was still like I was pretty close to that age though, where I was seeing Marvel Legends. So I think I was getting glimpses of like, I know these can be better.
Wow.
But there were some Toy Biz ones that we had too, like a Thing. I think there was a Thing that you could like put his glasses on and his hat. But again, he was kind of like, he had a little articulation, but not much.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty early on, I think I started going with, I think that's why I love my Toy Biz Spider-Man Classic Spider-Man so much, because I got that one and the Venom and even the Symbiote. I think those 3 when I was younger.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, these are, because those started hitting, and I think I got those around when they came out. So I was probably
what was that, 2002?
1, I think.
1?
2, 5 or 6 maybe. And then getting some of the Spider-Man movie toys, because I saw Spider-Man in theaters and I thought that was amazing. So those were the like probably beginning of, and I don't know if I quite saw it as collecting then. I think it was just like, oh, this one's cool, I like them. And then gradually began to get more. But a lot of that was basically Toy Biz Marvel Legends.
Okay. Yeah, I think
I'd say those early ones.
For me, it was, I definitely, like my uncle, he was pretty much a collector his whole life. Like I think he had maybe all of the He-Man action figures from back in the day. So I played with those and his Thundercats. So like they weren't like something new off the shelf that I would play with, but he already had like all of them. So I would go to my grandma's and that's where he stored all of his stuff. So I'd pull them out and play with all those. For myself, I started out more with Power Rangers, and I think that's where mainly the like idea of collecting, I collect things that I think look cool versus things I know about, because I would watch Power Rangers a little bit, but I can't remember the shows. And I definitely didn't watch all the shows of things I was getting. I would just be like, dude, that's a sweet Megazord. And it was like, I think it was in like the 6-inch scale.
Oh, that's
Megazord
true. We did have a sweet, I think it was, the Lost Galaxy Megazord. That was awesome. I forgot about that.
I definitely remember, I think it was like Dino Thunder. I was definitely getting those. The Ninja Force. I had something from an older one. But yeah, those were just like, I would get some of the Rangers, but it was mainly just like whatever the Megazord was. Like I'm going to the store, I'm using my, Christmas money to get that. And then I didn't switch into Marvel Legends until it's probably when series 4 or 5 was out. So it was a little bit after you. But I remember one of my uncles was visiting, and he was like, oh, I wasn't here for your birthday. So like, let's go to Walmart, pick out a birthday present, like get 2 action figures if you want. So I picked out my first Marvel Legends was Mr. Fantastic. And I think the other one was either Colossus or Blade. I'm going to say it's Colossus because I still have Colossus. I've sold Blade, so it might have been Blade, but either way, I still have my Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah.
But I just remember him like kind of second guessing me in the aisle. I was like, oh, I want these 2. And he's like, are you sure this is what you want for your birthday? I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
I got home. It was ramps. Then I'm only buying Marvel Legends from here on out. Any kind of like birthday money, Christmas money, I'm going to get the Marvel Legends. I think the biggest thing where it was like, I don't know, maybe this was like a poor influence on me as my like adult, but I remember like somehow I was on eBay as a kid and was just like, whoa, you can get like, it wasn't like a wave because it was kind of like random things, but it was probably like 7 or 8 Marvel Legends in this lot. I didn't know what lots were at the time. I was just like, whoa, you can get all these for, I don't know how much it was, but I was like, oh, Grandma, this is what I want for Christmas. She bought it. So Christmas came, I opened up so many Marvel Legends. I was like, this is the best.
Amazing. Right.
And again, it hooked me even harder.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the one for me I remember definitely kind of picking out, as you know, Dakota, my great regret was my mom never letting me get Man Spider from that Spider-Man Classics wave, but I rectified that later in life. But yeah, I think we probably had a lot of similar ones with just in those early waves. The one that I remember being a huge deal was that Spider-Man, the Fearsome Foes, I think. No, not Fearsome Foes. Sinister Six, or how do they call it that? Syndicate, whatever. Yeah. That was a big one. Then I got that for Christmas. That kind of similar experience. I was like, there's so many toys in here, and these are awesome. I think most of them broke because I think that Venom broke, the Spider-Man broke.
Yeah,
they were still working on the
and that
on
wasn't
the
me.
engineering. No, those ones weren't you, so you're totally blameless. I was never too into, for whatever reason. Maybe I just missed a lot of them, like the Build-A-Figure stuff. I remember I was
Yeah,
envious because you had more Build-A-Figures. You were, even back
mm-hmm.
then, knew a little
Yeah.
bit more what it was about. But maybe I just, I don't know, missed them sometimes.
Yeah, I think because we met in 4th grade, and I remember, like, I don't know, we were at the Christian school, and I was kind of like, I don't know, like, yeah, I talked to the people we play at recess or whatever. But then you came, and I don't know why, but I was just like, oh, like, let's play superheroes. And you were like, okay, cool. I was like, all right, this guy agreed to play superheroes pretty quick. Let me, like, put him through the paces here. Like, you know who this guy is? And you'd be like, yeah. I'd be like, all right, well, what's his powers? And you knew. And I was like, okay, this guy's for real. And I like ask you some more questions. And I was like, all right, that's it. We're friends. You know,
he knows his stuff.
You know what you actually know about superheroes. And then got together and played Marvel Legends. And I was like, oh, this guy's got like all the cool, like, you had a lot of the Spider-Man and X-Men stuff that I didn't have. So then we would kind of do like the trades of like, oh, you take this for the week and then we'll bring him back.
Yeah. That was actually very cool.
And that's how I broke some of your stuff. But they got replaced 20 years later. But
right. Yeah, exactly. They're all updated and better now. Yeah, that was always fun though. So I remember I'd be like, I'm working on, because I remember, I don't know how detailed you would be, but I would do like storylines and they'd be like pretty intricate. And I remember sometimes it'd be like, oh, I need this guy. And then I'd be like, oh, Dakota, can I borrow, I don't know, Rhino, because I need him for this like part. And then it'd be, it's just so funny to think about. But like, yeah, I remember being very like into just that was such a cool part of like having somebody else who liked those and like being able to loan them out. And also, despite some of them exploding, being like, I'm going to get these back, and then I can loan some others and that kind of stuff. So I think that also just reinforced the interest in comics too, was like just actually like thinking about them outside of, oh, I just read this book or I bought this toy. Like I want to like really connect with this world.
Because we would lend comics and stuff too. Yeah. Which was good because, like, I don't know, as a kid, like, I'm not going to be able to, like, we couldn't go, we didn't have a comic book store. We had to drive however far to go to one in a different town.
Yeah. At least an hour, well, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but
yeah, whenever Jay's was around, but that wasn't always, that was kind of, sometimes they were in business, sometimes they weren't, but and we would go there to do HeroClix tournaments with your brother. That was interesting. I never really understood what we were doing, but I was happy to join, and it was superhero related.
How'd you feel about that match, Dakota? I lost, but I'm happy to be here.
Pretty much.
I love superheroes. Yeah, I always like going there because they had like all the Toy Biz Legends on the wall. Yeah. And I remember, I don't know if we did this together. I thought we would, but there was at least some online database where I think we would kind of look, and it was pretty.
Yeah, there was.
Someone had photos, and it'd be like, "Oh, dude, I want that. Like that one looks so cool." And like,
well, I forgot all about that, but I do remember that now that you say that, because you could see all the. I can't remember what it. Let us know in the comments what was that, because as soon as you say what it was, I'll remember. It was like, was it Toy Wiz or something like that?
Professional photo. Yeah, maybe sometimes, I don't know. But I just remember that'd be like, it was like a whole listing of like, oh, there's that one. Like, I didn't even know that they made that. Right. Like, gotta get that guy. So
yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
Another, like, this doesn't really have a whole lot related other than just like our meeting, and we were, this was probably like the first year we knew each other, but when I have fevers, I sometimes would hallucinate as a kid. So Jordan got to experience that at a young age. We were just talking about this last night, but we went to bed. I went to shut off the TV and then just started hallucinating like crazy. I had him running all over his house, running from robots. Pretty sure it was a fever. I don't know if it was something in the pizza, but we were running from bathroom to bathroom. He was telling me I couldn't sleep in his bathroom. But I was like, that's the only place the robots aren't going to find us. But
they're the robots. You were very concerned about that, and maybe we'd stayed up too late doing an Ultron storyline or something. But yes,
I feel like I would have to be like, I don't know. You handled it well for being a fourth grader or whatever you were.
I do remember just following you, and I'm like, "What are we doing here?" And you're like, "We're running from the robots." I'm like, "All right, you seem worried about it, but I'm not sure what's going on here." And eventually, yes. I think when it came time you said we're going to set up camp in the bathroom for the night. I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. We gotta go to bed. This is too far.
Yeah, I don't know if you thought I was like serious or you're like, oh, Dakota's like, we're playing a game now in the middle of the night, but
I don't know.
Dakota was freaking out.
I just went with you. So,
unfortunately, not long after that, I moved from Iowa, went to Wisconsin. Jordan and I drifted our separate ways. You probably stayed into, I don't know how much longer you collected action figures after I left. Probably not.
I think I remember. I vividly remember one time going to Walmart and you were trying to build the Blob, and I found. I was gonna say King Thor, but whatever that Thor is. Do you remember with the beard and the? I found him at Walmart and I convinced my mom. I was like, Dakota really needs this guy, and she was a little on the fence, but I persuaded her to get it. So I do think I got you that one at some point somehow. But I think even by that
after
point,
I moved,
I don't remember. We'd have to look up when that came out. But I think even at that point, I still had my figures and I liked them, but I'd kind of I don't know, just wasn't really playing with them. I think I had them and I still thought they were cool, and would, I didn't like get rid of them or.
Yeah, I think that was also around the time when they stopped. I think they stopped because I remember us kind of talking. Maybe that first year I had moved because they had switched to the 3 3/4, and we were like, "Oh man, I feel so sorry for kids that don't have like the Marvel Legends we
were
had."
Like in high school by then, weren't we? When they started doing 3
3/4. Maybe we were. Well, yeah, that's when I would have moved. Was high school.
Oh, when you moved? I thought you meant when you left. Yeah, you're right. Yes, I do remember. Still, I mean, I still would, no matter what, I'd be checking out the toy aisle, like what's coming out these days. But yeah, I agree. I remember I see those. I'm like, hold on, they're calling these Marvel Legends, like,
right?
Come on, guys. Let's not.
Yeah, I think that kind of solidified.
I was so confused.
Right,
like, you're going back to like the '90s. Why are you making them tiny again?
Yeah, I guess that kind of solidified our like getting out of action figures collecting. We were like, all right, well, the toys aren't even cool anymore, so like we're just gonna switch over to comics. And that probably persisted until, well, we kind of reconnected, I think, kind of mid-college, because I was going to do a internship at a ninja gym in Texas, and I was like, oh, Jordan, you're in Kansas City, like, can I spend the night at your place? And kind of reconnected a little bit, and then would talk on the drives to and fro.
Regaled and then the days of collecting and action figures, I think. But yeah.
And then it wasn't until my sister was graduating high school. It was like during COVID, and like I was sitting at home watching her thing, and like I also kept all of my Marvel Legends from a kid because I was like, when I have kids, I'm going to have them play with these cool action figures because they don't make them like they used to. But I would get them out every once in a while because with those Toy Biz ones, they'd get a little stuck, and you'd have to move the joints because I know how easy they break. So I would get them out and like move them, and I like laid them all out, took a picture, and I was like, I don't know why, but I just like looked up on Facebook to be like Marvel Legends. Like I just want to see other people's pictures of these. And then I found the groups and I was like, whoa, look at this. So I posted in the groups and somebody was asking like, oh, are you going to sell some of those? And I was like, I didn't even know people would want to buy some of these. And there was others to buy, and I saw new ones.
You can do that.
Here we go. So I think I showed you the groups and you got in, and we were just kind of like seeing new stuff. And then I think maybe I bought like an Emma Frost because that was the last Build-A-Figure pieces I needed for my Annihilus that I had never finished. And then we got back together. You discovered Jay's in Des Moines, and I'd been eyeing Sauron for a while, and they had it there. And I think it was like $75, $80. And I was like, that's about reasonable for like eBay prices. So I bought it. And I think that was kind of both of our green lights of like, oh, we're doing this. We're spending money and we're collecting now.
Right. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, like I said, I think I probably gave or got rid of more. I mean, I kept a lot of the ones that I'm like, I really like these. These were cool, that kind of thing. But I think there were definitely some between nieces and nephews and that kind of thing that I'm like, I don't really know if I cared for this one so much, and, would gift them out. I don't think they were appreciated the way they should have been, and still probably should have kept those. I know I lost the Toy Biz Juggernaut. I had him. I think I
got a picture. I maybe showed that earlier. I'll show it now. Got a picture of me opening him as a kid. It's one of the only ones I have of me opening.
Right. Yeah. So there were definitely some good ones that I got rid of. But I think even if I wasn't playing with them or collecting them, I was still like, I knew enough to be like, I'm keeping these cool ones. So yeah, I didn't have probably as big of a base collection when we got back into it as you did, but
yeah,
I quickly began to amass more, as you can now see. But yeah, again, it was also kind of randomly buying them, but I think just kind of seeing where they were at now was very cool, and seeing the online communities and went a little while, as we've talked about before, probably acquired way too much stuff that might have been some junk, but then we had a lot of stuff to work with, and then started figuring out. So, yeah, and then here we are.
I think because after we got in, we were amassing our collection. You had your kind of like you were driving around town a lot with door dashing or grub hubbing. I was working as a porter at a hotel, so I was just taking laundry around to different rooms and whatever. So we had a lot of time to either listen to podcasts, or we would just call each other and talk for 8 hours about mostly action figures or comics. And we're like, there should be more, because we were listening to our Articulatrix's oral history of Marvel Legends, and he kind of was.
If you haven't heard that, folks, go check that out. Because
I agree.
What a treat.
I wish he still did more, because I love those.
And we'd love to talk to him.
But I mean, him stopping was what prompted us. We were like, all right, Articulatrix is taking too long in between episodes. We need more to listen to. So let's just make it ourselves. So that's where the podcast was born. And you folks can see the rest. Go back and watch our 300 videos to fill in the last few years of our collecting. But yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I think it is interesting to look back on. I think it is very cool to basically have a toy line that it's like, I was really into this as a kid. And I think for similar reasons, though, it's not like the nostalgic thing of like, oh, I collect them now because I liked them. Like, I liked even back then the articulation, the sculpt, like they were well done. And it's cool to see how that's carried over like into now. You know what I mean? Where it's not like, oh, I collect the retro turtle toys just because, that's fine if that's what you do. But it's like, I think I get the same, like the things that I liked about them then, I still like about them today, which is cool that it's like the same line for the most part with Legends and stuff. DC things, another story. They were pretty hit or miss as I was growing up collecting. I would get random Batman whatevers, but I wonder, I'd be curious to know. I'm always interested, like people starting out, like where that's at. Like I think we have some younger listeners that are collecting, so I'm always curious to hear that side of it, like getting into toys, or even in the past like 10 years, how that played out. But very glad we did get into these wonderful pieces of plastic.
Yeah, I remember you had that one from the Batman cartoon, the Man Bat, and that was probably my favorite action figure that you had that I didn't have. And I always kind of wanted it as a kid, but it must have been a little bit older, so it was never on the shelves anymore. So that was one that when we got back into collecting, I was like, I got to go back and track this one down. And it was super cheap. It was probably like $10, but one of my favorite non-Marvel Legend. I don't think that's a cool action figure. Just that Man Bat is also probably one of my more favorite versions of Man Bat. So I don't know, what was, do you remember any of your like getting back into Marvel Legends? Kind of like I said, like Sauron was my like, boom, here we go, throwing down the gauntlet. Do you remember kind of your either first ones getting back in?
I mean, the first one that I completed like in stores with stuff was going to be that Disney Plus wave. So I remember building pretty into building the Falcon wings. Like that was kind of fun. Because it's like right when those shows were coming out, and I was like, oh, these are cool, which is interesting because I don't, as we've talked about, do so much MCU stuff anymore. Maybe the MCU was in a different state there. You can go over to our other channel or whatever channel and learn more about that. But that was cool and kind of still got that feeling. I guess maybe I didn't know enough at that point. If I saw that now, I'd be like, you're kind of ripping me off here, Hasbro, by making me collect wing pieces. But I think I didn't know any better. And I was just, again, I was glad to be there. So I was like, all right, I found them. Okay. And I remember like, even then, that was still that feeling of hunting it, like kind of going to different Walmarts and finding them and putting it together was pretty cool. But I guess as far as like getting back into like getting a new figure, I did get that Man Spider pretty early on, and I was like, "This is really cool," because I wanted this one as a kid and never got him, and that was pretty fun. So there were some cool ones before that, but I think the first like retail hunting down like consistently would be that one. But yeah, there were some other cool ones for sure mixed in there as well.
Very cool. Well, there you have it, folks. That is our collector origin story from the time we were children until now. I do actually want to do bigger children. I want to do a listener call-in collector origin story. So again, I always mention these towards the end. So really, the true fans are getting invited into the call-in shows. But I want to do a call-in show where we have listeners call in, and we maybe, because we can't, I don't know how long this episode just was, but we can't be giving everybody this much time. Sorry, folks, start your own podcast. But we do want to put like a 5-minute timer on the clock and then have you guys call in and tell us maybe what you started collecting as a kid and then how you got into like adult collecting. Because I think that'd be interesting to hear from the folks. So let us know if you're interested in doing that. It'll probably be maybe late September sometime, maybe October, that we do something like this. But I'm interested to see your origin stories as well. So until then, though, make sure you're liking, sharing, and subscribing, and stay strong.